to abolish the police, but until then, we need a justice system that holds killer cops accountable. And I think the intersection of policing, race, capitalism sits a very deadly paradigm that we live in right now. So it's just good to see people out in the streets, and I think the virus has gotten people. People feel pent up and fed up. They're feeling the economic and health impacts of the coronavirus, and I think this kind of news coming during this time is really disheartening for folks. And I mean, if you look around, it's mostly young people out here, and you see young people have not really been engaged in the electoral cycle this year, but people are voting with their feet, and clearly the younger generation is voting for abolition and a better world. So,
yeah. Well, thank you. So, and when it comes to basically the way forward, March 2021 is the court dates for Chauvin. Whether that falls the way through where he gets convicted or not, what do you hope in the future that something what do you hope changes for the future to where we have either more accountability right away, or more justice right away, or a change in the system?
Yeah, I think regardless, we have to see some type of change. I think in an ideal world, we abolish the police and we cut all of their funding and we move it into community programs. But until then, I think we need community control of the police, and not just a oversight board, but true community control. And I feel like beyond that, people just need to stay in the streets. The city of Minneapolis was out in the streets for 2 weeks straight, and Lake Street burned, and we got more shit done in that period of time than the 5 years since Jamar Clark, the policy changes that the politicians want to use. So I think people are going to stay in the streets until the policing system as we know it is abolished.
On that note, we were just talking to a small business owner, and then I'll let you get back to what you're doing. We were just talking to a small business protector, actually, like a customized protection agency, and he was talking about he didn't want to see the small businesses burn, but then he also was saying, I don't know if that there was going to be any charges had the businesses not burned. What is your take on, obviously I think I heard it, but do you think that the people being in the streets and actually taking part in some of the destruction, albeit with the communities, right in the community off of Lake Street, do you think that was part of the reason why that there was charges brought up in the first place?
I think it was, and I think that it was really tragic that our small businesses were impacted like that. But the reality is, like, people in this city specifically targeted big banks and places like Target that have been pimping out our community for years. And so really this is just a stimulus that we were due from the government. And again, the small businesses, it's really tragic, and I think our community will rally around them to support them coming back. But again, the days the city was burning, we got concessions that we never would have dreamed of the 5 years since Jamar Clark before that. So.
Yeah, any last words you'd want to say?
No, I think just anybody who's able to be out in these streets, come out. Anybody who's not, make sure you're checking in your people who are out here, and donate to Unicorn Riot and other independent media. So,
appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nico.
Appreciate you.
Good to see you, bro.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. You all too. So we just heard from that community member. We're going to talk to some youth here in a minute too. We have different photojournalists out here, independent photojournalists. We have our independent media organization, Unicorn Riot, which you just heard, to donate to. If you have the financial means and the financial privilege, we operate off of your donations. So we are at unicornriot.ninja/donate. Sign up to be a monthly subscriber, a monthly donor. All of our work is allowed free on the internet, non-commercial, share alike, put on Creative Commons licensing. So. We're a nonprofit 501c3 educational media organization. All of the donations are also tax deductible. So we have people that are standing outside of their house with their fists up as the march is passing 25th, going down Chicago Avenue. You okay right now to be filmed and everything?
Okay.
All right, cool. So hello. You seem like a youth. What does this feel like to be out here? I think this is maybe organized by youth. Are you one of the organizers? What does this all feel like right now for you?
This is actually my friend's protest. This is a lot right now, but I can't be on the wrong side of history. We making history right now. I want this in my school textbooks when I go back to school, because this is real. When we all saw the article, we were pissed. So this resulted into this right here. And the people that are against this right now, they hate to see solidarity. They hate to see unity. They hate to see people come together and form like this. They hate to see this. We're stronger when we're together, honestly.
Yeah. Thank you for that. So when it comes to being activated, have you been to other protests before this?
Yes, I'm really active because I'm a black girl in America. It's not a choice not to be active. I gotta be out here. I got black brothers, I got black sisters. My dad was black, my mom is black. It's not really a choice. This is mandatory. This is like a job. Because when I see my people out here just dropping, I can't sit back at home. And, yeah, I can't sit down at home and just be chill about this. My soul won't allow me to do it.
No, thank you. Can you talk about that a little bit further? You said you can't just sit back. You're a black woman. You're impacted by this in so many different ways.
5 different fights.
Go ahead.
We're fighting against the health system. We're fighting against the judicial system. We're fighting against every single fucking
The
system.
school
in Minneapolis.
system.
The school system. It's not okay. It would be pathetic for us to sit back and not be out here.
It's
every
not
single
an
day.
option for us to just be quiet. As black girls, as black young girls, it's not an option for us to just be quiet and be on the sidelines while this shit is happening. It's
We
not
can't
an
allow
option.
our brothers to die, and our brothers cannot allow ours to die at the hands of the white man.
Okay? And with Breonna Taylor, black women deserve justice too. That's why I'm out here too. Black women are not acknowledged enough. Black women are also dying by the police. If we're not dying in hospitals, we out here getting killed by police too. So I'm out here because I'm a black girl. I have black brothers, and I'm tired of this.
What do you hope to change?
This white privilege, this white supremacy in this country has to stop. No man with $1 million should be let out of jail for murdering somebody for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. That is white supremacy, that is white privilege. There are people in jail serving life for petty crimes, for marijuana, for DUIs, which I guess is not a petty crime, but that's not okay. They're serving life. They're getting the chair. Emmett Till. Yeah. And that's not okay. Our people cannot be incarcerated, dying of coronavirus in those small cells to please the white man. That's not gonna happen. We're seeing the same story over and over for the past 400 years, and we're tired of it.
We just want to be heard. We only 16 years old. We can't do it by
Can't say all
ourselves.
that, bro. They're gonna find us.
We only 16 years old. We can't do it by ourselves.
What do you hope, if people are watching this, what do you hope that people can do to help you all in the struggle?
I know that coronavirus is going on, and you probably got family members. You don't want to be outside getting your people sick. But if you see posts boosting protesters, literally share that shit. If you see articles speaking on white fragility, share that shit. Read that shit if you're white, okay? Acknowledge your privilege.
Yeah, you have to acknowledge your privilege, and you have to be an ally. For you to be if you're not anti-racist, you are actively racist.
And
you
stop the performative activism. If
Yeah,
you don't
we
care,
fucking hate that
we don't
shit.
need you.
We saw too many people drop out once the school year started. But I have school tomorrow, you got school tomorrow, and we still out here.
Okay.
You have to make sacrifices.
What is last question, I'll let you get all back to it. What has this been like as a youth going through 2020 in Minneapolis? You had the coronavirus really eating up your whole school, and then you had George Floyd in the uprising. What has this been like?
It's fucking ridiculous. I need time to decompress. I need the same privilege that the white folks get. They need to make therapy free. They need to make it so me and my sisters can roam the hallways freely once Coronas is gone, and we need to be able to walk the streets freely without having to fear for our lives. During the summer, I had to buy her a gas mask because they was trying to gas us downtown.
Honestly?
That is not safe. That's not protecting. You're not protecting your people, and you're wearing that badge wrong.
I wish that I could be a teenager, go to the beach, sip on some
I wanna go to the
yogurt.
mall.
Okay? I want to
hang out with
be
my
a teenager.
friends.
I don't want to be out here protesting for basic human decency. What the hell does that? That doesn't even make sense, gosh.
It doesn't make sense.
Basic human decency. How the fuck is my skin a threat?
It's not, sis. And we have to consistently remind our people that it's not. This kind of stuff, if we weren't so mentally strong, this breaks people. As kids, that's mentally draining.
Okay.
There's so many fights that we have to fight just as children.
This
We
is
cannot
shit that
be
you
the
see at war. And nobody's supposed to see this shit. Tear gas is illegal. They tear gassing us. Whole time we was getting tear gas this whole entire summer. They don't even use that shit in war. And honestly, I got school tomorrow. I got football practice tomorrow. There's no excuse why you should
football
not.
player.
Bro.
Girls can play football.
We can play football. We can play football.
I got a volleyball game tomorrow. Nobody can come though, but it'll still be fun. Like these are things we're supposed to enjoy in life, but we can't. I'm gonna be tired tomorrow because I'm out here walking from Cup Foods on 38th all the way to downtown. And
It's
these
not
cars
an
are
option to
right
be
here.
a teenager right now for us.
That is selfish if you are. If you're ignoring something, you are the problem.
Literally.
If you're ignoring us out here, if you don't want to come out here because you're scared, we're scared.
We're scared too. I'm scared too.
Shit, they could kill us at any moment.
I'm hearing that the National Guard, my chest rising up. I'm scared too. That ain't no excuse. Shit, I'm scared.
We have to be in the good kind of trouble, not the bad kind of trouble. I think MLK said that.
All right, any last words you all have?
Derek Chauvin needs to go back to jail. Free the kids in cages.
Okay.
Please vote Donald Trump out of office because we can't. Vote for George Floyd. Vote because he can't.
That's
That's
for
why
Breonna Taylor because she can't do it no more. Imagine being an ER tech, saving lives, and then going back home just to lose yours by somebody who was supposed to protect and serve you.
You know what? One more thing. For anybody saying that Breonna Taylor was in the wrong, she was asleep. They already had that person in custody.
And if she
they
wasn't
did-
asleep, she was in her own home.
Where are we?
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Appreciate your time. We're up to, this is Franklin right here.
Okay. I see the people under your comments. I'm not trying to die.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, So here we're reaching up to Chicago Franklin. We just heard from two youth. Pretty incredible interview. Looks like they've taken up the whole street here in Chicago Franklin. It looks like people are stopping up a bus or stopping up some other vehicle. As you see, other people have created hard blockades with their vehicles, protecting the march and the marchers. So yeah, it looks like the bikers are performing, creating some kind of blockade here, and there might have been some disagreements over that. But here we're on Chicago Lake Street. We just heard from this gentleman about why he was out here with the Kaepernick. So this park is PB Park, and just 4 weeks ago, last month sometime, the police raided this park. As we heard from a community member when the march was coming down, it was talking about there was a lot of political will to make some changes from the George Floyd uprising. Well, one of those political will changes was the police were supposedly not going to be contracted with the park police anymore. So the Minneapolis Park Boards would not contract with the police, and that became not a reality. They definitely were contracting with the police. The police Minneapolis police were used in the raid of PB Park, and that's about the houseless issues. That was a sanctuary place. Separate but related in the sense that these are things that are happening on the south side of Minneapolis that are consistent with police brutality, police violence, as well as different oppression going on here in Minneapolis. A lot of racism and disparities here.
Especially the niggas that let that nigga get out of jail with a $1 million bond. A $1 million bond. Do you know what $1 million would do to this city alone? Say that! This city alone? If George don't get it, shut it down! If George don't get it, shut it down! If George don't get it, shut it down! If George don't get it, shut it
as we were walking down Chicago Ave, there was a building where I was like, I don't remember what specific building it was. There was like some center in it, but there was also a Minneapolis Police Department substation inside of it.
This is what community looks like when you come together.
So again, the march is right here is on Franklin and Chicago. Oh, perfect. All right. So this is what we were talking about, was some of the unhoused, the evictions that happen at PB Park. I think there's going to be a speaker about that. Oh wow, this person is doing a flip behind us. He just finished. We got one of the bikers riding off. Hey, yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. What's your name? Tiger. Good to meet you. I'm Nico. Word. All right. Oh yeah, I feel like I recognize your eyes, but it's always hard. So we got somebody with a shield out here. Out in Portland, the police have been taking people's shields preemptively. Sorry. So the speech is going to start about. He's doing flips. He's doing flips. There we go. So I think they're going to form a circle and talk about the evictions of the unhoused, but I'm not sure. That's sort of what I heard.
Hey!
Yo, this summer, I don't know if y'all heard about the Sheridan. Y'all hear about that? The homeless hotel? Yeah, when that shit broke down, all the homeless had to go back into these parks, starting off with Powderhorn. Yeah, I also want as minimum amount of cameras away from me as possible. Please, like.
That means don't film him.
Yeah.
Period.
Can you turn that? Turn that.
So we'll keep the audio on it and we'll not film him.
Cameras down.
Cameras down.
All right. This summer, continuously, we've been brutalized by the park police, doing something that is institutional, something that is made in this society, which is completely based on colonization and disenfranchising people. They will push people from camp to camp to inhabitable conditions, not letting them be able to have a viable, fucking sustainable household. And we can go beyond that. We can go beyond that. They don't just move us from park to park. We're off the highway. The wall of God natives right off Middle Earth. We're off 94. We're at the Greenway. We're at an empty lot. And they still will kick us out. No matter what we have.
Where are they supposed to go?
Where are we supposed to go? These nonprofits try to shove people into hotels in these suburbs with no resources, no phone, no fucking way to commute or make it anywhere. Then they tag them with loitering charges. Now you gotta go to court over in Coon Rapids. The truth of the matter is these nonprofits make the homeless people sign contracts that will sell 30% of their unemployment. Avivo, right down this street, a Native American nonprofit who made $1 million in 2017. Their top 6 officials, they don't care about us. Nonprofits, fucking community organizers, fucking city council members. They are known accomplices and collaborators with the state. Their job exists based off of our suffering.
park police.
Fuck the park police! Fuck the park police! And even beyond that, we can go another step forward. The working class, us, how many of you know 3 generations in one household and they still can't make it by for rent? Housing isn't sustainable anymore. Our necessities are sold in plastic bags. They end up
We're not filming the speaker right
and
now.
praise themselves. They will always speak of it about humanity, always praise the justice for all. They'll always praise this unity. They will preach so much of a great man. Why should we mimic them? We don't want a new America. We don't want a new Europe. We will not mimic our oppressors. We need the new man and woman, the whole human being.
Helicopters flying low and people are flicking it off. We just heard a speech about some of the unhoused people and some of the ways forward.
Hey, I just got one question. Everybody else just saying this and that. But my question is, how the fuck they mad at us and they want to kill us and they're the ones who took us from our country? That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know. Y'all out here raping slaves like my sister, my auntie and them. And y'all want to kill us? We should want to kill y'all. Hey, that Bible say hand for hand, eye for eye, tooth for a tooth, do it not? Okay, thank you. Hey, here you go.
University of Utah in Salt Lake City, welcome to the first and only Vice Presidential Debate of 2020, sponsored by the Nonpartisan Commission on Presidential Debates. I'm Susan Page of USA Today. It is my honor to moderate this debate, an important part of our democracy. In Kingsbury Hall tonight, we have a small and socially distant audience, and we've taken extra precautions during this pandemic. Among other things, everyone in the audience is required to wear a face mask, and the candidates will be seated 12 feet apart. The audience is enthusiastic about their candidates, but they've agreed to express that enthusiasm only twice, at the end of the debate and now when I introduce the candidates. Please welcome California Senator Kamala Harris and Vice President Mike Pence.
Thank you.
Senator Harris and Vice President Pence, thank you for being here. We're meeting as President Trump and the First Lady continue to undergo treatment in Washington after testing positive for COVID-19. We send our thoughts and prayers to them for their rapid and complete recovery and for the recovery of everyone afflicted by the coronavirus. The two campaigns and the Commission on Presidential Debates have agreed to the ground rules for tonight. I'm here to enforce them on behalf of the millions of Americans who are watching. One note, no one in either campaign or at the Commission or anywhere else has been told in advance what topics I'll raise or what questions I'll ask. This 90-minute debate will be divided into 9 segments of about 10 minutes each. I'll begin a segment by posing a question to each of you, sometimes the same question, sometimes a different question on the same topic. You will then have 2 minutes to answer without interruption by me or the other candidate. Then we'll take 6 minutes or so to discuss the issue. At that point, although there will always be more to say, we'll move on to the next topic. We want a debate that is lively, but Americans also deserve a discussion that is civil. These are tumultuous times, but we can and will have a respectful exchange about the big issues facing our nation. Let's begin with the ongoing pandemic that has cost our country so much. Senator Harris, the coronavirus is not under control. Over the past week, Johns Hopkins reports that 39 states have had more COVID cases over the past 7 days than in the week before. 9 states have set new records. Even if a vaccine is released soon, the next administration will face hard choices. What would a Biden administration do in January and February that a Trump administration wouldn't do? Would you impose new lockdowns for businesses and schools and hotspots? a federal mandate to wear masks? You have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Thank you, Susan. Well, the American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country. And here are the facts. 210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed. We're looking at frontline workers who have been treated like sacrificial workers. We are looking at over 30 million people who in the last several months had to file for unemployment. And here's the thing. On January 28th, the Vice President and the President were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people, and that it would be contracted because it is airborne. And they knew what was happening, and they didn't tell you. Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th, as opposed to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare? They knew and they covered it up. The president said it was a hoax. They minimized the seriousness of it. The president said, you're on one side of his ledger if you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger if you don't. And in spite of all of that, today they still don't have a plan. They still don't have a plan. Well, Joe Biden does. And our plan is about what we need to do around a national strategy for contact tracing, for testing, for administration of the vaccine, and making sure that it will be free for all. That is the plan that Joe Biden has and that I have, knowing that we have to get a hold of what has been going on, and we need to save our country. And Joe Biden is the best leader to do that, and frankly, this administration has forfeited their right to re-election based on this.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, more than 210,000 Americans have died of COVID-19 since February. The U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population is higher than that of almost every other wealthy nation on earth. For instance, our death rate is 2.5 times that of Canada next door. You head the administration's coronavirus task force. Why is the U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population higher than that of almost every other wealthy country? And you have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Susan, thank you. And I want to thank the Commission and the University of Utah for hosting this event. And Senator Harris, it's a privilege to be on the stage with you. You know, our nation has gone through a very challenging time this year. But I want the American people to know that from the very first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first. Before there were more than 5 cases in the United States, all people who had returned from China, President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done. And that was he suspended all travel from China, the second largest economy in the world. Now, Senator Joe Biden opposed that decision. He said it was xenophobic and hysterical. But I can tell you, having led the White House Coronavirus Task Force, that that decision alone by President Trump bought us invaluable time to stand up the greatest national mobilization since World War II. And I believe it saved hundreds of thousands of American lives. Because with that time, we were able to reinvent testing. More than 115 million tests have been done to date. We were able to see to the delivery of billions of supplies so our doctors and nurses had the resource and support they needed. And we began, really, before the month of February was out, to develop a vaccine and to develop medicines and therapeutics that have been saving lives all along the way. And under President Trump's leadership, Operation Warp Speed, we believe, will have literally tens of millions of doses of a vaccine before the end of this year. The reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every step of the way. I mean, quite frankly, when I look at their plan that talks about advancing testing, creating new PPE, developing a vaccine, it looks a little bit like plagiarism, which is something Joe Biden knows a little bit about. And I think the American people know that this is a president who has put the health of America first, and the American people, I believe with my heart, can be proud of the sacrifices they have made It's saved
Thank you,
countless
Vice President
American
Pence.
lives.
Senator Harris, would you like to respond?
Absolutely. Whatever the vice president is claiming the administration has done, clearly it hasn't worked. When you're looking at over 210,000 dead bodies in our country, American lives that have been lost, families that are grieving that loss. And you know, the vice president is the head of the task force and knew on January 28th how serious this was. And then thanks to Bob Woodward, we learned that they knew about it. And then when that was exposed, the vice president said, when asked, well, why didn't y'all tell anybody? He said, because the president wanted people to remain calm.
Well, let's get
No, but Susan, this is important.
Susan,
I want to
have to
add,
weigh
but
in here.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
I have to
I'm
weigh
speaking.
in.
Yeah, you
So
can have
I
15 more
wanna-
seconds, and then we'll give the Vice President
Thank
a
you.
chance to
So I
respond.
want to ask the American people, how calm were you when you were panicked about where you're going to get your next roll of toilet paper? How calm were you when your kids were sent home from school and you didn't know when they could go back? How calm
Thank
were
you.
you
Thank
when
you,
your
Senator
children
Harris.
couldn't see your parents because you were afraid they could kill them?
Let's give Vice President Pence a chance to respond. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute to
You
respond.
know, there's not a day gone by that I haven't thought of every American family that's lost a loved one. And I want all of you to know that you'll always be in our hearts and in our prayers. But when you say what the American people have done over these last 8 months hasn't worked, that's a great disservice to the sacrifices the American people have made.
I'm referring
The
to
reality,
the
if I may finish, Senator, the reality is Dr. Fauci said everything that he told the president in the Oval Office, the president told the American people. Now, President Trump, I will tell you, has boundless confidence in the American people, and he always spoke with confidence that we'd get through this together. But when you say it hasn't worked, when Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and our medical experts came to us in the second week of March, they said if the president didn't take the unprecedented step of shutting down roughly half of the American economy, that we could lose 2.2 million Americans. Now, that's the reality.
Thank you.
They also
Thank you,
said
Vice
to us
President
if we did
Pence.
everything right, Susan, we could still lose more than 200,000 Americans.
Vice
Now,
President
one
Pence.
life lost is
Thank
too
you.
many, Susan. But the American people, I believe, deserve credit for the sacrifices that they have made, putting the health of their family and their neighbors first, our doctors, our nurses, our first
Thank you, Vice
responders.
President Pence.
And I'm going to speak up on behalf of what the American people have done.
Vice President Pence, you were in the front row in a Rose Garden event 11 days ago at what seems to have been a super spreader event for senior administration and congressional officials. No social distancing, few masks, and now a cluster of coronavirus cases among those who were there. How can you expect Americans to follow the administration's safety guidelines to protect themselves from COVID when you at the White House have not been doing so?
Well, the American people have demonstrated over the last 8 months that when given the facts, they're willing to put the health of their families and their neighbors and people they don't even know first. And President Trump and I have great confidence in the American people and their ability to take that information and put it into practice. In the height of the epidemic, when we were losing a heartbreaking number of 2,500 Americans a day, we surged resources to New Jersey and New York and New Orleans and Detroit. We told the American people what needed to be done, and the American people made the sacrifices. When the outbreak in the Sun Belt happened this summer, again, Americans stepped forward. But the reality is the work of the President of the United States goes on. A vacancy on the Supreme Court of the United States has come upon us, and the President introduced Judge Amy Coney
Yes,
Barrett.
thank you. Thank you, Vice
But
President Pence.
that, if I may say, that Rose Garden event, there's been a great deal of speculation about it. My wife Karen and I were there and honored to be there. Many of the people who were at that event, Susan, actually were tested
Yes.
for coronavirus, and it was an outdoor event, which all of our scientists regularly and routinely advise. The difference here is President Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of their health. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris consistently talk about mandates, and not just mandates with the coronavirus, but a government takeover of health care,
Thank you,
the
Vice
Green New
President Pence.
Deal, all government control. We're about freedom and respecting the freedom of the American people.
Let's talk about respecting the American people. You respect the American people when you tell them the truth. You respect the American people when you have the courage
Which we've
to be a
always
leader
done.
speaking of those things that you may not want people to hear, but they need to hear so they can protect themselves. But this administration stood on information that if you had as a parent, if you had as a worker, knowing you didn't have enough money saved up, and now you're standing in a food line because of the ineptitude of an administration that was unwilling to speak the truth to the American people. So let's talk about caring about the American people. The American people have had to sacrifice far too much because of the incompetence of this administration. It is asking too much of the people.
Susan, we talked about
It is asking too much of the people. That they would not be equipped with the information they need to help themselves to protect their parents and their children.
Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, I'm sorry.
It's fine, I'm Kamala.
No, you're Senator Harris to me. For life to get back to normal, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other experts say that most of the people who can be vaccinated need to be vaccinated. But half of Americans now say they wouldn't take a vaccine if it was released now. If the Trump administration approves a vaccine before or after the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should take it, I'll be the first in line to take it, absolutely. But if Donald Trump tells us that we should take it, I'm not taking it.
Vice President Pence, there have been a lot of repercussions from this pandemic. In recent days, the president's diagnosis of COVID-19 has underscored the importance of the job that you hold and that you are seeking. That's our second topic tonight. It's the role of the vice president. One of you will make history on January 20th. You will be the vice president to the oldest president the United States has ever had. Donald Trump will be 74 years old on Inauguration Day. Joe Biden will be 78 years old. That already has raised concerns among some voters, concerns that have been sharpened by President Trump's hospitalization in recent days. Vice President Pence, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with President Trump about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes without interruption.
Well, Susan, thank you, although I would like to go back.
I think we need to move on to the issue of
Well, thank you, but I would like to go back because the reality is that we're going to have a vaccine, Senator, in record time, in unheard of time, in less than a year. We have 5 companies in phase 3 clinical trials, and we're right now producing tens of millions of doses. So the fact that you continue to undermine public confidence in a vaccine, if the vaccine emerges during the Trump administration, I think is unconscionable. And Senator, I just ask you, stop playing politics with people's lives. The reality is that we will have a vaccine, we believe, before the end of this year. And it will have the capacity to save countless American lives. And your continuous undermining of confidence in a vaccine is it's just unacceptable. And let me also say, the reality is when you talk about failure in this administration, we actually do know what failure looks like in a pandemic. It was 2009. The swine flu arrived in the United States. Thankfully, it ended up not being as lethal as the coronavirus. But before the end of the year, when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, not 7.5 million people contracted the swine flu, 60 million Americans contracted the swine flu. If the swine flu had been as lethal as the coronavirus, in 2009, when Joe Biden was vice president, we would have lost 2 million American lives. His own chief of staff, Ron Klain, would say last year that it was pure luck that they did, quote, everything possible wrong. And we learned from that. They left the strategic national stockpile empty. They left an empty and hollow plan, but we still learned from it. And I think the American people, I'm going to say again, can be proud of what we have done. And Senator, please stop undermining confidence in a vaccine.
Senator Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked Vice President Pence, which is, have you had a conversation or reached an agreement with Vice President Biden about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, and if you win the election next month, do you think you should? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
So let me tell you, first of all, the day I got the call from Joe Biden, it was actually a Zoom call. asking me to serve with him on this ticket was probably one of the most memorable days of my life. I thought about my mother, who came to the United States at the age of 19, gave birth to me at the age of 25 at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland, California. And the thought that I'd be sitting here right now, I know would make her proud, and she must be looking down on this. Joe and I were raised in a very similar way. We were raised with values that are about hard work, about the value and the dignity of public service, and about the importance of fighting for the dignity of all people. And I think Joe asked me to serve with him because, I have a career that included being elected the first woman district attorney of San Francisco, where I created models of innovation for law enforcement in terms of reform of the criminal justice system. I was elected the first woman of color and black woman to be elected Attorney General of the state of California, where I ran the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice. And there I took on everything from transnational criminal organizations to the big banks that were taking advantage of homeowners, to for-profit colleges that were taking advantage of veterans. And then, of course, now I serve in the United States Senate as only the second black woman ever elected to the United States Senate. I serve on the Senate Intelligence Committee, where I've been in regular receipt of classified information about threats to our nation and hotspots around the world. I've traveled the world. I've met with our soldiers in war zones. And I think Joe has asked me to serve with him because he knows that we share a purpose which is about lifting up the American people. And after the 4 years that we have seen of Donald Trump unifying our country around our common values and principles.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Neither President Trump nor Vice President Biden has released a sort of detailed health information that had become the modern norm until the 2016 election. And in recent days, President Trump's doctors have given misleading answers or refused to answer basic questions about his health. And my question to each of you in turn is this information voters deserve to know? Vice President Pence, would you like to go first?
Well, Susan, thank you. And let me say, on behalf of the President and the First Lady, how moved we've all been by the outpouring of prayers and concern for the President. And I do believe it's emblematic of the prayers and the concern that have ushered forth for every American impacted by the coronavirus. But the care the President received at Walter Reed Hospital, the White House doctors, was exceptional. And the transparency that they practiced all along the way will continue. The American people have a right to know about the health and well-being of their President, and will continue to do that. But I'm just extremely grateful and was more than a little moved by the broad and bipartisan support. And Senator, I want to thank you and Joe Biden for your expressions of genuine concern. And I also want to congratulate you, as I did on that phone call, on the historic nature of your nomination.
Thank you.
I never expected to be on this stage 4 years ago, so I know the feeling. But the reality is we've got an election before the American people in the midst of this challenging year. And the stakes have never been higher, but I think the choice has never been clearer.
I want to give Senator Harris a chance to respond to the same question I asked, which is, do voters have a right to know more detailed health information about presidential candidates and especially about presidents, especially when they're facing some kind of challenge?
Absolutely, and that's why Joe Biden has been so incredibly transparent, and certainly by contrast, the president has not, both in terms of health records, but also let's look at taxes. We now know, because of great investigative journalism, that Donald Trump paid $750 in taxes. When I first heard about it, I literally said, "You mean $750,000? And it was like, no, $750. We now know Donald Trump owes and is in debt for $400 million. And just so everyone is clear, when we say in debt, it means you owe money to somebody. And it'd be really good to know who the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, owes money to, because the American people have a right to know what is influencing the President's decisions. And is he making those decisions on the best interest of the American people, of you, or self-interest. So, Susan, I'm glad you asked about transparency, because it has to be across the board. Joe has been incredibly transparent over many, many years. The one thing we all know about Joe, he puts it all out there. He is honest, he is forthright. But Donald Trump, on the other hand, has been about covering up everything.
Thank you, Senator Harris. I want to give you a chance to respond, Vice President.
Well, look, I respect the fact that Joe Biden spent 47 years in public life. I respect your public service as well.
Thank you.
But the American people have a president who's a businessman, he's a job creator, who's paid tens of millions of dollars in taxes, payroll taxes, property taxes. He's created tens of thousands of American jobs. And the president said those public reports are not accurate. And the president's also released literally stacks of financial disclosures the American people can review just as the law allows. But the distinction here is that Joe Biden, 47 years in public service, compared to President Donald Trump, who brought all of that experience 4 years ago.
Thank you, Vice
and
President.
turned this economy around by cutting taxes, rolling back regulation, unleashing American energy, fighting for free and fair trade, and all of that's on the line if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
You know, that's a good segue into our third topic, which is about the economy. This has been another aspect of life for Americans that's been so affected by this coronavirus. We have a jobs crisis brewing. On Friday, we learned that the unemployment rate had declined to 7.9% in September, but the job growth had stalled, and that was before the latest round of layoffs and furloughs in the airline industry at Disney and elsewhere. Hundreds of thousands of discouraged workers have stopped looking for work. Nearly 11 million jobs that existed at the beginning of the year haven't been replaced. Those hardest hit include Latinos, Blacks, and women. Senator Harris, the Biden-Harris campaign has proposed new programs to boost the economy, and you would pay for that new spending by raising $4 trillion in taxes on wealthy individuals and corporations. Some economists warn that could curb entrepreneurial ventures that fuel growth and create jobs. Would raising taxes put the recovery at risk? And you have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
Thank you. On the issue of the economy, I think there couldn't be a more fundamental difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden believes you measure the health and the strength of America's economy based on the health and the strength of the American worker and the American family. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who measures the strength of the economy based on how rich people are doing, which is why he passed a tax bill benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations of America, leading to a $2 trillion deficit that the American people are going to have to pay for. On day one, Joe Biden will repeal that tax bill. He'll get rid of it. And what he'll do with the money is invest it in the American people. And through a plan that is about investing in infrastructure, something that Donald Trump said he would do. I remember hearing about some infrastructure week. I don't think it ever happened. But Joe Biden will do that. He'll invest in infrastructure. It's about upgrading our roads and bridges, but also investing in clean energy and renewable energy. Joe is going to invest that money in what we need to do around innovation. There was a time when our country believed in science and invested in research and development so that we were an innovation leader on the globe. Joe Biden will use that money to invest in education. So, for example, for folks who want to go to a 2-year community college, it will be free. If you come from a family that makes less than $125,000, you'll go to a public university for free. And across the board, we'll make sure that if you have student loan debt, it's cut by $10,000. That's how Joe Biden thinks about the economy, which is it's about investing in the people of our country as opposed to passing a tax bill, which had the benefit of letting American corporations go offshore to do their business.
Thank you,
You're
Senator
welcome.
Harris. Vice President Pence, your administration has been predicting a rapid and robust recovery, but the latest economic report suggests that's not happening. Should Americans be braced for an economic comeback that is going to take not months, but a year or more? You have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
When President Trump and I took office, America had gone through the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression. Because when Joe Biden was vice president, they tried to tax and spend and regulate and bail our way back to a growing economy. President Trump cut taxes across the board. Despite what Senator Harris says, the average American family of four had $2,000 in savings in taxes. And with the rise in wages that occurred, most predominantly for blue-collar, hardworking Americans, the average household income for a family of four increased by $4,000 following President Trump's tax cuts. But America, you just heard Senator Harris tell you, on day one, Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes. It's really remarkable to think, Susan. I mean, right after a time where we're going through a pandemic that lost 22 million jobs at the height, we've already added back 11.6 million jobs because we had a president who cut taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy, fought for free and fair trade, and secured $4 trillion from the Congress of the United States to give direct payments to families, save 50 million jobs through the Paycheck Protection Program. We literally have spared no expense to help the American people and the American worker through this. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to raise taxes. They want to bury our economy under a $2 trillion Green New Deal, which you were one of the original co-sponsors of in the United States Senate. They want to abolish fossil fuels and ban fracking, which would cost hundreds of thousands of American jobs all across the heartland. And Joe Biden wants to go back to the economic surrender to China, that when we took office, half of our international trade deficit was with China alone. And Joe Biden wants to repeal all of the tariffs that President Trump put into effect to fight for American jobs and American workers. Joe Biden says democracy's on the ballot. Make no mistake about it, Susan. The American economy, the American comeback is on the ballot with 4 more years of growth and opportunity, 4 more years of President Donald Trump. 2021 is going to be the biggest economic year in the history of this country.
Thank you, Vice President Pence. Senator Harris.
Well, I mean, I thought we saw enough of it in last week's debate, but I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is Joe Biden has been very clear. He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000 a year.
He said he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking.
Well,
I'm speaking.
It'd be important if you said the truth. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. That was tax cuts that gave the average working family $2,000 in a tax break every single year. Senator,
that is absolutely not true. That
is he only going to repeal part of the Trump tax cuts?
If you don't mind letting me finish, we can then have a conversation, okay?
Please.
Okay. Joe Biden will not raise taxes on anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden will not end fracking. He has been very clear about that. Joe Biden is the one who, during the Great Recession, was responsible for the Recovery Act that brought America back. And now the Trump-Pence administration wants to take credit when they rode the coattails of Joe Biden's success for the economy that they had at the beginning of their term. Of course, now the economy is a complete disaster. But Joe Biden, on the one hand, did that. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who has reigned over a recession that is being compared to the Great Depression. On the one hand, you have Joe Biden, who was responsible with President Barack Obama for the Affordable Care Act, which brought health care to over 20 million Americans and protected people with pre-existing conditions. And what it also did is it saved those families who otherwise were going bankrupt because of hospital bills they could not afford. On the other hand, you have Donald Trump, who's in court right now, trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which means that you will lose protections if you have pre-existing conditions. And this is very important, Susan.
Yes,
and it's
but
important.
we need to give Vice President.
I'd just like to, he interrupted me, and I'd like to just finish, please. If you have a pre-existing condition, heart disease, diabetes, breast cancer, they're coming for you. If you love someone who has a pre-existing condition, they're coming for you. If you are under the age of 26 on your parents' coverage, they're coming for you.
Senator Harris, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me give you a chance to respond.
Well, I hope we have a chance to talk about health care because Obamacare was a disaster. The American people remember it well. And President Trump and I have a plan to improve health care and to protect pre-existing conditions for every American. But look, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. You yourself said on multiple occasions when you were running for president that you would ban fracking. Joe Biden looked at a supporter in the eye and pointed and said, I guarantee that we will abolish fossil fuels. They have a $2 trillion version of the Green New Deal, Susan, that your newspaper, USA Today, said really wasn't that very different from the original Green New Deal. More taxes, more regulation, banning fracking, abolishing fossil fuel, crushing American energy, and economic surrender to China is a prescription for economic decline. President Trump and I will keep America growing. The V-shaped recovery that's underway right now will continue with 4 more years of President Donald Trump.
Thank you very, very much, Vice President Pence. Once again, you've provided the perfect segue to a new topic, which is climate change. And Vice President Pence, I'd like to pose the first question to you. This year, we've seen record-setting hurricanes in the South. Another one, Hurricane Delta, is now threatening the Gulf. And we have seen record-setting wildfires in the West. Do you believe, as the scientific community has concluded, that man-made climate change has made wildfires bigger, hotter, and more deadly, and have made hurricanes wetter, slower, and more damaging? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Thank you, Susan. Well, first, I'm very proud of our record on the environment and on conservation. According to all of the best estimates, our air and land are cleaner than any time ever recorded. Our water is among the cleanest in the world. And just a little while ago, the President signed the Outdoors Act. It's the largest investment in our public lands and public parks in 100 years. So President Trump has made a commitment to conservation and to the environment. Now, with regard to climate change, the climate is changing. But the issue is, what's the cause and what do we do about it? President Trump has made it clear that we're going to continue to listen to the science. Now, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would put us back in the Paris Climate Accord. They'd impose the Green New Deal, which would crush American energy, would increase the energy costs of American families in their homes, and literally would crush American jobs. And President Trump and I believe that the progress that we have made in a cleaner environment has been happening precisely because we have a strong free market economy. You know, what's remarkable is the United States has reduced CO2 more than the countries that are still in the Paris Climate Accord, but we've done it through innovation, and we've done it through natural gas and fracking, which, Senator, the American people can go look at the record. I know Joe Biden says otherwise now, as you do, but the both of you repeatedly committed to abolishing fossil fuel and banning fracking. And so by creating the kind of American innovation, we're actually steering toward a stronger and better environment. With regard to wildfires, President Trump and I believe that forest management has to be front and center, and even Governor Gavin Newsom from your state has agreed we've got to work on forest management. And with regard to hurricanes, the National Oceanic Administration tells us that actually as difficult as they are,
Thank you, Vice President.
There are no more hurricanes today than there were 100 years ago.
Thank you.
But many of the climate alarmists use hurricanes and wildfires to try and sell their bill of goods of a Green New Deal. And President Trump and I are going to always put American jobs and American workers first.
Senator Harris, as the Vice President mentioned, you co-sponsored the Green New Deal in Congress. But Vice President Biden said in last week's debate that he does not support the Green New Deal. But if you look at the Biden-Harris campaign website, it describes the Green New Deal as a crucial framework. What exactly would be the stance of a Biden-Harris administration toward the Green New Deal? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Sure. So first of all, I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. That is a fact. I will repeat that Joe Biden has been very clear that he thinks about growing jobs, which is why he will not increase taxes for anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. Joe Biden's economic plan, Moody's, which is a reputable Wall Street firm, has said will create 7 million more jobs than Donald Trump's. And part of those jobs that will be created by Joe Biden are going to be about clean energy and renewable energy. Because you see, Joe understands that the west coast of our country is burning, including my home state of California. Joe sees what is happening on the Gulf states, which are being battered by storms. Joe has seen and talked with the farmers in Iowa, whose entire crops have been destroyed because of floods. And so Joe believes, again, in science. I'll tell you something, Susan. I served, when I first got to the Senate, on the committee that's responsible for the environment. Do you know this administration took the word science off the website and then took the phrase climate change off the website? We have seen a pattern with this administration, which is they don't believe in science. And Joe's plan is about saying we're going to deal with it, but we're also going to create jobs. Donald Trump, when asked about the wildfires in California, and the question was, the science is telling us this, you know what Donald Trump said? Science doesn't know. So let's talk about who is prepared to lead our country over the course of the next 4 years on what is an existential threat to us as human beings. Joe is about saying we're going to invest that in renewable energy. It's going to be about the creation of millions of jobs. We will achieve net zero emissions by 2050, carbon neutral by 2035. Joe has a plan. This has been a lot of talk from the Trump administration, and really it has been to go backward instead of forward. We will also re-enter the climate agreement with pride.
Senator Harris just said that climate change is an existential threat. Vice President Pence, do you believe that climate change poses an existential threat?
As I said, Susan, the climate is changing. We'll follow the science. But once again, Senator Harris is denying the fact that they're going to raise taxes on every American. Joe Biden said twice in the debate last week that on day one he was going to repeal the Trump tax cuts. Those tax cuts delivered $2,000 in tax relief to the average family of four across America. And with regard to banning fracking, I just recommend that people look at the record. You yourself said repeatedly that you would ban fracking. You were the first Senate co-sponsor of the Green New Deal. And while Joe Biden denied the Green New Deal, Susan, thank you for pointing out, the Green New Deal is on their campaign website. And as USA Today said, it's essentially the same plan as you co-sponsored with AOC when she submitted it in the Senate. And you just heard the senator say that she's going to resubmit America to the Paris Climate Accord. Look, the American people have always cherished our environment. We'll continue to cherish it. We've made great progress reducing CO2 emissions through American innovation and the development of natural gas through fracking. We don't need a massive $2 trillion Green New Deal that would impose all new mandates on American businesses and American families.
Thank you.
Joe Biden wants us to retrofit 4 million American business buildings. It makes no sense. It will cost jobs. President Trump is going to put America first. He's going to put jobs first, and we're going to take care of our environment and follow the science.
Thank you,
But on the issue of jobs,
Senator Harris.
Let's talk about that. The vice president earlier referred to, as part of what he thinks is an accomplishment, the president's trade war with China. You lost that trade war. You lost it. What ended up happening is because of a so-called trade war with China, America lost 300,000 manufacturing jobs. Farmers have experienced bankruptcy because of it. We are in a manufacturing recession because of it. And when we look at where this administration has been, there are estimates that by the end of the term of this administration, they will have lost more jobs than almost any other presidential administration. And the American people know what I'm talking about. You know, I think about 20-year-olds. You know, we have a 20-year-old, a 20-something-year-old, who are coming out of high school and college right now, and you're wondering, is there going to be a job there for me? We're looking at people who are trying to figure out how they're going to pay rent by the end of the month. Almost half of American renters are worried about whether they're going to be able to pay rent by the end of the month. This is where the economy is in America right now, and it is because of the catastrophe and the failure of leadership of this administration.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me give you just 15 seconds to respond, because then I want to move on to
Well, I'd love to respond. Look, lost the trade war with China. Joe Biden never fought it. Joe Biden has been a cheerleader for communist China over the last several decades. And again, Senator Harris, you're entitled to your opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. When Joe Biden was vice president, we lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs, and President Obama said they were never coming back. He said we needed a magic wand to bring them back. In our first 3 years after we cut taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy, this administration saw 500,000 manufacturing jobs created. And that's exactly the kind of growth we're going to continue to see as we bring our nation through this pandemic. But a Green New Deal, your massive new mandates, your Paris Climate Accord, it's going to kill jobs this time, just like it killed jobs.
I just need to respond very briefly.
15 seconds, and then we'll move on.
Thank you. Joe Biden is responsible for saving America's auto industry, and you voted against it. So let's set the record straight. Thank you.
I'd like to talk about China. We have, as our next topic, we have no more complicated or consequential foreign relationship than the one with China. It is a huge market for American agricultural goods. It's a potential partner in dealing with climate change in North Korea. And in a video tonight, President Trump again blamed it for the coronavirus, saying China will pay. Vice President Pence, how would you describe our fundamental relationship with China? Competitors, adversaries, enemies? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Susan. Well, before I leave that, let me speak to voting records if I can. You know, everybody knows that NAFTA cost literally thousands of American factories to close. We saw automotive jobs go south of the border. President Trump fought to renegotiate NAFTA. And the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement is now the law of the land. American people deserve to know Senator Kamala Harris was one of only 10 members of the Senate to vote against the USMCA. It was a huge win for American auto workers. It was a huge win for American farmers, especially dairy in the upper Midwest. But Senator, you said it didn't go far enough on climate change, that you put your radical environmental agenda ahead of American auto workers and ahead of American jobs. The American people deserve to know that. Is probably why Newsweek magazine said that Kamala Harris was the most liberal member of the United States Senate in 2019. More liberal than Bernie Sanders, more liberal than any of the others in the United States Senate. So now with regard to China, look, Susan, first and foremost, China is to blame for the coronavirus. And President Trump is not happy about it. He's made that very clear, made it clear again today. China and the World Health Organization did not play straight with the American people. They did not let our personnel into China to get information on the coronavirus until the middle of February. Fortunately, President Trump, in dealing with China from the outset of this administration, standing up to China that had been taking advantage of America for decades in the wake of Joe Biden's cheerleading for China, President Trump made that decision before the end of January to suspend all travel from China. And again, the American people deserve to know Joe Biden opposed President Trump's decision to suspend all travel from China. He said it was hysterical. He said it was xenophobic.
Vice President Pence.
But President Trump has stood up to China. We're going to continue to stand strong.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
We want to improve the relationship, but we're going to level the playing field, and we're going to hold China accountable for what they did to America with the coronavirus.
Thank you. Senator Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked the Vice President. How would you describe our fundamental relationship with China? Are we competitors, adversaries, enemies? You'll have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Susan, the Trump administration's perspective and approach to China has resulted in the loss of American lives, American jobs, and America's standing. There's a weird obsession that President Trump has had with getting rid of whatever accomplishment was achieved by President Obama and Vice President Biden. For example, they created within the White House an office that basically was responsible for monitoring pandemics. They got rid of it.
Not true.
There was a team of disease experts that President Obama and Vice President Biden dispatched to China to monitor what is now predictable and what might happen. They pulled them out. We now are looking at 210,000 Americans who have lost their lives. Let's look at the job situation. We mentioned before the trade deal, the trade war, they wanted to call it, with China. It resulted in the loss of over 300 manufacturing jobs and a manufacturing recession, and the American consumer paying thousands of dollars more for goods because of that failed war that they called it. Then let's talk about standing. Pew, a reputable research firm, has done an analysis that shows that leaders of all of our formerly allied countries have now decided that they hold in greater esteem and respect Xi Jinping, the head of the Chinese Communist Party, than they do Donald Trump, the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States. This is where we are today because of a failure of leadership by this administration.
Senator Harris, we've seen changes in the role of the United States in terms of global leadership over the past 4 years. And of course, times do change. What's your definition? We've seen strains with China, of course, as the Vice President mentioned. We've seen strains with our traditional allies in NATO and elsewhere. What is your definition of the role of American leadership in 2020?
So, you know, Joe is, I love talking with Joe about a lot of these issues. And, you know, Joe, I think he said it quite well. He says, you know, foreign policy, it might sound complicated, but really it's relationships. So just think about it as relationships. And so we know this in our personal and professional relationships. You got to keep your word to your friends. Got to be loyal to your friends. People who've stood with you, got to stand with them. You got to know who your adversaries are and keep them in check. But what we have seen with Donald Trump is that he has betrayed our friends and embraced dictators around the world. Let's take, for example, Russia. So, Russia, I serve on the Intelligence Committee of the United States Senate. America's intelligence community told us Russia interfered in the election of the President of the United States in 2016 and is playing in 2020. Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, said the same. But Donald Trump, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America, prefers to take the word of Vladimir Putin over the word of the American intelligence community. You look at our friends at NATO. He has walked away from agreements. You can look at the Iran nuclear deal, which now has put us in a position where we are less safe because they are building up what might end up being a significant nuclear arsenal. We were in that deal, guys. We were in the Iran nuclear deal with friends, with allies around the country. And because of Donald Trump's unilateral approach to foreign policy, coupled with his isolationism, he pulled us out and has made America less safe. So, Susan, it's about relationships. And the thing that has always been part of the strength of our nation, in addition to our great military, has been that we keep our word. But Donald Trump doesn't understand that because he doesn't understand what it means to be honest.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me give you a chance to respond.
Well, thank you. Well, President Trump kept his word when we moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the state of Israel. When Joe Biden was vice president, they promised to do that, and they never did. We've stood strong with our allies, but we've been demanding. NATO is now contributing more to our common defense than ever before, thanks to President Trump's leadership. We've strengthened our alliances across the Asia-Pacific, and we've stood strong against those who would do us harm. You know, when President Trump came into office, ISIS had captured an area of the Middle East the size of Pennsylvania. But President Trump unleashed the American military, and our armed forces destroyed the ISIS caliphate and took down their leader, al-Baghdadi, without one American casualty. Al-Baghdadi was responsible for the death of thousands. But notably, America's hearts today are with the family of Kayla Mueller, her parents of which are here with us tonight in Salt Lake City. Today, 2 of the ISIS killers responsible for Kayla Mueller's murder were brought to justice in the United States. Jihadi John was killed on the battlefield along with the other Beetle. The reality is that when Joe Biden was vice president, we had an opportunity to save Kayla Mueller. Breaks my heart to reflect on it, but the military came into the Oval Office, presented a plan. They said they knew where Kayla was. Baghdadi had held her for 18 months, abused her mercilessly before they killed her. But when Joe Biden was vice president, they hesitated for a month. And when armed forces finally went in, it was clear she'd been moved 2 days earlier. And her family says with a heart that broke the heart of every American that if President Donald Trump had been president, they believe Kayla would be alive today.
Thank you, Vice
Look,
President.
we destroyed the ISIS caliphate. And you talk about re-entering the Iran nuclear deal. I mean, the last administration transferred $1.8 billion to the leading state sponsor
Thank you, Vice
of
President
terrorism.
Pence.
President Donald Trump got us out of the deal.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
And when Qasem Soleimani was traveling to Baghdad
Thank you,
to do
Vice President
harm
Pence.
to Americans, President Donald Trump took
Thank you,
him
Vice
out.
President Pence.
And America is safer, our allies are safer, and the American people know President Donald Trump will never
Thank you,
hesitate
Vice President
to take
Pence.
action.
I would like to give Senator Harris a chance to respond, but not at such great length, because of course there are other topics we want to talk about.
But I would like equal time.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please go ahead.
First of all, to the Mueller family, I know about your daughter's case, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. What happened to her is awful, and it should have never happened. And I know Joe feels the same way. And I know that President Obama feels the same way. But you mentioned Soleimani. Let's start there. So after the strike on Soleimani, there was a counter strike on our troops in Iraq. And they suffered serious brain injuries. And do you know what Donald Trump dismissed them as? Headaches. And this is about a pattern of Donald Trump's, where he has referred to our men who are serving in our military as suckers and losers. Donald Trump, who went to Arlington Cemetery and stood above the graves of our fallen heroes and said, what's in it for them? Because, of course, he only thinks about what's in it for him. Let's take what he said about John McCain, a great American hero. And Donald Trump says he doesn't deserve to be called a hero because he was a prisoner of war. And this is very important when you want to talk about who is the current commander-in-chief and what they care about and what they don't care about. Public reporting that Russia had bounties on the heads of American soldiers. And you know what a bounty is? It's somebody puts a price on your head and they will pay it if you are killed. And Donald Trump had talked at least 6 times to Vladimir Putin and never brought up the subject. Joe Biden would never do that.
Thank you.
Joe Biden would, but Joe Biden would hold Russia to account for any threat to our nation's security or to our troops who are sacrificing their lives for the sake of our democracy and our safety.
Thank you, Senator Harris. This is such an important issue, but we have other important issues as well. And
Susan,
I want to make sure we have a chance
I really have to
talk
respond to
about
that. Look, she has
15 seconds because
well, I got to have
trying
more
to
than
keep,
that. Look,
well, I'm sorry, but Vice President Pence, you've had more time than she's had so far.
The slanders against President Donald Trump regarding men and women of our armed forces are absurd.
I'm sorry, Vice President Pence.
My son is a captain in the United
Yes.
States Marine Corps. My son-in-law is deployed in the United States Navy. I can assure all of you, with sons and daughters serving in our military, President Donald Trump not only respects but reveres all of those who serve in our armed forces, and any suggestion otherwise is ridiculous.
Thank you, Vice President Pence. Vice
The American
President
people
Pence,
deserve, Susan,
Vice
the
President
American
Pence,
people
I
deserve to
didn't,
know.
Vice President Pence, I did not, excuse me,
Susan, the
I did
American
not
people
create
deserve
the
to know
rules for tonight.
Joe Biden
Your
and
campaigns agreed to the rules for tonight's debate with the Commission on Presidential Debates. I'm here to enforce them, which involves moving from one topic to another, giving roughly equal time to both of you, which is what I'm trying very hard to do.
Go right ahead.
So I want to go ahead and move to the next topic, which is an important one, as the last topic was, and that is the Supreme Court. On Monday, the Senate Judiciary Committee is scheduled to open hearings on Amy Coney Barrett's nomination to the Supreme Court. Senator Harris, you'll be there as a member of the committee. Yes. Her confirmation would cement the court's conservative majority and make it likely open to more abortion restrictions, even to overturning the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling. Access to abortion would then be up to the states. Vice President Pence, you're the former governor of Indiana. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want Indiana to do? Would you want your home state to ban all abortions? You have 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
Well, thank you for the question, but I'll use a little bit of my time to respond to that very important issue before. The American people deserve to know Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general, was responsible for the death of hundreds of American service members. When the opportunity came, we saw him headed to Baghdad to kill more Americans. President Trump didn't hesitate, and Qasem Soleimani is gone. But you deserve to know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris actually criticized the decision to take out Qasem Soleimani. It's really inexplicable, but with regard to Joe Biden, it's explainable. Because history records that Joe Biden actually opposed the raid against Osama bin Laden. It's absolutely essential that we have a commander-in-chief who will not hesitate to act to protect American lives and to protect American service members, and that's what you have in President Donald Trump. Now, with regard to the Supreme Court of the United States, let me say President Trump and I could not be more enthusiastic about the opportunity to see Judge Amy Coney Barrett become Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Now, she's a brilliant woman, and she will bring a lifetime of experience and a sizable American family to the Supreme Court of the United States. And our hope is, in the hearing next week, unlike Justice Kavanaugh received with treatment from you and others, we hope she gets a fair hearing. And we particularly hope that we don't see the kind of attacks on her Christian faith that we saw before. I mean, the Democrat chairman of the Judiciary Committee before, when Judge Barrett was being confirmed for the Court of Appeals, expressed concern that the dogma of her faith lived loudly in her. Dick Durbin of Illinois said that it was a concern. Senator, I know one of our judicial nominees, you actually attacked because they were a member of the Catholic Knights of Columbus, just because the Knights of Columbus holds pro-life views and pro-marriage views.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
So
Your time
my hope is
up.
that when the hearing takes place,
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
that Judge Amy Coney Barrett will be respected,
Thank you,
treated
Vice President
respectfully,
Pence.
voted and confirmed
Thank
to the
you.
Supreme Court of the United States.
Senator Harris, you're the senator from and former Attorney General of California. So let me ask you a parallel question to the one I posed to the Vice President. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want California to do? Would you want your home state to enact no restrictions on access to abortion? And you have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Thank you, Susan. First of all, Joe Biden and I are both people of faith, and it's insulting to suggest that we would knock anyone for their faith. And in fact, Joe, if elected, will be only the second practicing Catholic as President of the United States. On the issue of this nomination, Joe and I are very clear, as are the majority of the American people. We are 27 days before the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And, you know, before, when this conversation has come up, you know, it's been about election year or election time. We're literally in an election. Over 4 million people have voted. People are in the process of voting right now. And so Joe has been very clear, as the American people are. Let the American people fill that seat in the White House, and then we'll fill that seat on the United States Supreme Court. And to your point, Susan, the issues before us couldn't be more serious. There's the issue of choice, and I will always fight for a woman's right to make a decision about her own body. It should be her decision and not that of Donald Trump and the Vice President, Michael Pence. But let's also look at what else is before the court. It's the Affordable Care Act. Like, literally in the midst of a public health pandemic, when over 210,000 people have died and 7 million people probably have what will be in the future considered a pre-existing condition because you contracted the virus. Donald Trump is in court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And I said it before, and it bears repeating. This means that there will be no more protections, if they win, for people with pre-existing conditions. This means that over 20 million people will lose your coverage It means that if you're under the age of 26, you can't stay on your parents' coverage anymore. And here's the thing. The contrast couldn't be more clear. They're trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. Joe Biden is saying, let's expand coverage. Let's give you a choice of a public option or private coverage. Let's bring down premiums.
Thank you, Senator
Let's
Harris.
lower Medicare eligibility to 60.
Thank you, Senator.
That's true
Harris.
leadership.
You know, you mentioned earlier, Vice President Pence, that the president was committed to maintaining protections for people with pre-existing conditions. But you do have this court case that you are supporting, your administration supporting, that would strike down the Affordable Care Act. The president says, President Trump says that he's going to protect people with pre-existing conditions, but he has not explained how he would do that. And that was one of the toughest nuts to crack when they were passing the Affordable Care Act. So tell us specifically, how would your administration protect Americans with pre-existing conditions to have access to affordable insurance if the Affordable Care Act is struck down?
Well, thank you, Susan. But let me just say, addressing your very first question, I couldn't be more proud to serve as vice president to a president who stands without apology for the sanctity of human life. I'm pro-life. I don't apologize for it. And this is another one of those cases where there's such a dramatic contrast. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris support taxpayer funding of abortion all the way up to the moment of birth. Late-term abortion. They want to increase funding to Planned Parenthood of America. Now, for our part, I would never presume how Judge Amy Coney Barrett would rule on the Supreme Court of the United States, but we'll continue to stand strong for the right to life. When you speak about the Supreme Court, though, I think the American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris. Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed? I mean, there have been 29 vacancies on the Supreme Court during presidential election years, from George Washington to Barack Obama. Presidents have nominated in all 29 cases. But your party is actually openly advocating adding seats to the Supreme Court, which has had 9 seats for 150 years, if you don't get your way. This is a classic case of if you can't win by the rules, you're going to change the rules. Now, you've refused to answer the question. Joe Biden has refused to answer the question. So I think the American people would really like to know, if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed to the Supreme Court of the United States, are you and Joe Biden, if somehow you win this election, going to pack the Supreme Court to get your way?
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more. In 1864...
Well, I'd like you to answer the question.
No, Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. Okay. In 1864, one of the, I think, political heroes, certainly of the president, I assume of you also, Mr. Vice President, is Abraham Lincoln. Mm-hmm. Abraham Lincoln was up for re-election. And it was 27 days before the election. And a seat became open on the United States Supreme Court. Abraham Lincoln's party was in charge not only of the White House, but the Senate. But Honest Abe said it's not the right thing to do. The American people deserve to make the decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And then that person can select who will serve for a lifetime on the highest court of our land. And so Joe and I are very clear. The American people are voting right now, and it should be their decision about who will serve on this most important body for a lifetime.
Thank you,
and
Senator
the
Harris.
People, Susan, are voting right now. They'd like to know if you and Joe Biden are going to pack the Supreme Court if you don't get your way in this nomination.
Let's talk about packing.
You once again gave a non-answer. Joe Biden gave a non-answer.
Trying to answer you now.
The American people deserve a straight answer. And if you haven't figured it out yet, the straight answer is they are going to pack the Supreme Court if they somehow win this election. Men and women, I got to tell you, people across this country, if you cherish our Supreme Court, if you cherish the separation of powers, you need to reject the Biden-Harris ticket. Come November the 3rd, re-elect President Donald Trump, and we'll stand by that separation of powers in a 9-seat Supreme Court.
Yeah, let's talk about packing the court then. Let's talk about the fact. Yeah, I'm about to. So the Trump-Pence administration has been, because I sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Susan, as you mentioned, and I've witnessed the appointments for lifetime appointments to the federal courts, district courts, courts of appeal. People who are purely ideological, people who have been reviewed by by legal professional organizations and found to have been not competent are substandard. And do you know that of the 50 people who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments, not one is black? This is what they've been doing. You want to talk about packing a court? Let's have that discussion.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Senator. Let's go on and talk about the issue of racial justice.
I just want the record to reflect she never answered the question. So maybe
you.
the next debate, Joe Biden will answer the question, but I think the American people know the answer.
Thank you, Vice President. In March, Breonna Taylor, a 26-year-old emergency room technician in Louisville, was shot and killed after police officers executing a search warrant in a narcotics investigation broke into her apartment. The police said they identified themselves. Taylor's boyfriend said he didn't hear them do that. He used a gun registered to him to fire a shot, which wounded an officer. The officers then fired more than 20 rounds into the apartment. They say they were acting in self-defense. None of them have been indicted in connection with her death. Senator Harris, in the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes.
I don't believe so. And I've talked with Breonna's mother, Tamika Palmer, and her family. And her family deserves justice. She was a beautiful young woman. She had as her life goal to become a nurse, and she wanted to become an EMT to first learn what's going on out on the street so she could then become a nurse and save lives. And her life was taken unjustifiably and tragically and violently. And it brings me to, the 8 minutes and 46 seconds that America witnessed, during which an American man was tortured and killed under the knee of an armed, uniformed police officer. And people around our country of every race, of every age, of every gender, perfect strangers to each other, marched shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm, fighting for us to finally achieve that ideal of equal justice under law. And I was a part of those peaceful protests. And I believe strongly that, first of all, we are never going to condone violence, but we always must fight for the values that we hold dear, including the fight to achieve our ideals. And that's why Joe Biden and I have said on this subject, look, and I'm a former career prosecutor. I know what I'm talking about. Bad cops are bad for good cops. We need reform of our policing in America and our criminal justice system, which is why Joe and I will immediately ban chokeholds and carotid holds. George Floyd would be alive today if we did that. We will require a national registry for police officers who break the law. We will, on the issue of criminal justice reform, get rid of private prisons and cash bail, and we will decriminalize marijuana, and we will expunge the records of those who have been convicted of marijuana. This is the time for leadership on a tragic issue of unarmed black people in America who have been killed.
Senator Harris. Vice President Pence, let me pose the same question to you. In the case of Breonna Taylor, was justice done? You have 2 minutes, uninterrupted.
Well, our heart breaks for the loss of any innocent American life. And the family of Breonna Taylor has our sympathies. But I trust our justice system, a grand jury that refused the evidence. And it really is remarkable that as a former prosecutor, you would assume that an impaneled grand jury looking at all the evidence got it wrong. But you're entitled to your opinion, Senator. I think, look, and with regard to George Floyd, there's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd. And justice will be served. But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting that followed. I mean, it really is astonishing. Flora Westbrook is with us here tonight in Salt Lake City. Just a few weeks ago, I stood at what used to be her salon. It was burned to the ground by rioters and looters. And Flora is still trying to put her life back together. And I must tell you, this presumption that you hear consistently from Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that, that America is systemically racist. And that, as Joe Biden said, that he believes that law enforcement has an implicit bias against minorities is a great insult to the men and women who serve in law enforcement. And I want everyone to know who puts on the uniform of law enforcement every day that President Trump and I stand with you. And it is remarkable that when Senator Tim Scott tried to pass a police reform bill, brought together a group of Republicans and Democrats, Senator Harris, you got up and walked out of the room. And then you filibustered Senator Tim Scott's bill on the Senate floor that would have provided new accountability, new resources. Look, we don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement, improving public safety, and supporting our African American neighbors and all of our minorities. Under President Trump's leadership, we'll always stand with law enforcement, and we'll do what we've done from day one, and that is improve the lives of African Americans.
Thank you, Vice President
Record unemployment, record
Vice
investments in
President Pence, your time
education,
is
and we'll
up.
fight for school choice for all of our minorities.
Thank you, Vice
I'd
President.
like to respond.
Senator Harris.
I will not sit here and be lectured by the Vice President on what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on this stage who has personally prosecuted everything from child sexual assault to homicide. I'm the only one on this stage who has prosecuted the big banks for taking advantage of America's homeowners. I'm the only one on this stage who prosecuted for-profit colleges for taking advantage of our veterans. And the reality of this is that we are talking about an election in 27 days, where last week the President of the United States took a debate stage in front of 70 million Americans and refused to condemn white supremacists.
Not true.
And
Not true.
it wasn't like he didn't have a chance. He didn't do it, and then he doubled down. And then he said, when pressed, stand back, stand by. And this is a part of a pattern of Donald Trump's. He called Mexicans rapists and criminals. He instituted as his first act a Muslim ban. On the issue of Charlottesville, where people were peacefully protesting the need for racial justice, where a young woman was killed. And on the other side, there were neo-Nazis carrying tiki torches, shouting racial epithets, anti-Semitic slurs. And Donald Trump, when asked about it, said there were fine people on both sides. This is who we have as the President of the United States. And America, you deserve better. Joe Biden will be a president who brings our country together.
Senator Harris.
And recognizes the beauty in our diversity and the fact that we all have so much more in common than what separates us.
Vice President Pence, let me give you a minute to respond.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate that very much. You know, I think this is one of the things that makes people dislike the media so much in this country, Susan, is that you selectively edit, just like Senator Harris did, comments that President Trump and I and others on our side of the aisle make. I mean, Senator Harris conveniently omitted, after the president made comments about people on either side of the debate over monuments, he condemned the KKK, neo-Nazis, and white supremacists, and has done so repeatedly. You're concerned that he doesn't condemn neo-Nazis. President Trump has Jewish grandchildren. His daughter and son-in-law are Jewish. This is a president who respects and cherishes all of the American people. But you talk about having personally prosecuted. I'm glad you brought up your record, Senator.
Thank you.
I really need to make this point. When you were DA in San Francisco, when you left office, African Americans were 19 times more likely to be prosecuted for minor drug offenses than whites and Hispanics. When you were Attorney General of California, you increased the disproportionate incarceration of blacks in California. You did nothing on criminal justice reform in California. You didn't lift a finger to pass the First Step Act on Capitol Hill. I mean, the reality is your record speaks for itself. President Trump and I have fought for criminal justice reform.
Thank you, Vice President
We fought for
Pence.
educational choice and opportunities for African Americans, all of our
Thank you,
minorities.
sir.
And we'll do it for 4 more
Thank you.
years.
You know, there is no more important issue than the final issue that we're going to talk about tonight, and that is the issue of the election
But
itself.
Susan, he attacked my record. I would like an opportunity to respond.
Let me give you 30 seconds because we're running out of time.
I appreciate that. First of all, having served as the Attorney General of the state of California, the work that I did is a model of what our nation needs to do, and we will be able to do under a Joe Biden presidency. Our agenda includes what this administration has failed to do. It will be about not only instituting a ban on chokeholds and carotid holes.
Thank you.
Not only,
Thank you, Senator
I
Harris.
would like to go through.
These are points that you made earlier in the hour, and I want to talk about the election itself before we have to.
But I want to talk about the connection between what Joe and I will do and my record, which includes I was the first statewide officer to institute a requirement that my agents would wear body cameras and keep them on full time. We were the first to initiate a requirement that there would be a training for law enforcement on implicit bias because, yes, Joe Biden and I recognize that implicit bias does exist, Mr. Vice President, contrary to what you may believe. We did the work of instituting reforms that were about investing in reentry. This is the work that we have done and the work we will do going forward. And again, I will not be lectured by the Vice President on our record of what we have done in terms of law enforcement and keeping our communities safe and a commitment to reforming the criminal justice system of America.
Thank you, Senator Harris. And I'd like to pose I'd like you to respond first to the question on our final topic, the election itself. President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If your ticket wins and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what steps would you and Vice President Biden then take? What would happen next? You have 2 minutes.
So I'll tell you, Joe and I are, I think, particularly proud of the coalition that we've built around our campaign. We probably have one of the broadest coalitions of folks that you've ever seen in a presidential race. Of course, we have the support of Democrats, but also independents and Republicans. In fact, 7 members of President George W. Bush's cabinet are supporting our ticket. We have the support of Colin Powell, Cindy McCain, John Kasich, over 500 generals, retired generals, and former national security experts and advisors are supporting our campaign. And I believe they are doing that because they know that Joe Biden has a deep, deep-seated commitment to fight for our democracy and to fight for the integrity of our democracy and to bring integrity back to the White House. And so we believe in the American people. We believe in our democracy. And here's what I'd like to say to everybody. Vote. Please vote. Vote early. Come up with a plan to vote. Go to iwillvote.com. You can also go to joebiden.com. We have it within our power in these next 27 days to make the decision about what will be the course of our country for the next 4 years. And it is within our power, and if we use our vote and we use our voice, we will win. And we will not let anyone subvert our democracy with what Donald Trump has been doing, as he did on the debate stage last week, when again in front of 70 million people, he openly attempted to suppress the vote. Joe Biden, on the other hand, on that same debate stage, because clearly Donald Trump doesn't think he can run on a record because it's a failed record, Joe Biden on that stage said, hey, just please vote. So I'll repeat what Joe said. Please vote.
Thank you, Senator. Vice President Pence, President Trump has several times refused to commit himself to a peaceful transfer of power after the election. If Vice President Biden is declared the winner and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful transfer of power, what would be your role and responsibility as Vice President? What would you personally do? You have 2 minutes.
Well, Susan, first and foremost, I think we're going to win this election because while Joe Biden and Kamala Harris rattle off a long litany of the establishment in Washington, D.C., an establishment that Joe Biden's been a part of for 47 years, President Donald Trump has launched a movement of everyday Americans from every walk of life. And I have every confidence that those same Americans that delivered that historic victory in 2016, they see this president's record where we rebuild our military, we revived our economy through tax cuts and rolling back regulation, fighting for fair trade, unleashing American energy. We appointed conservatives to our federal courts at every level. And we stood with the men and women of law enforcement every single day. And I think that movement of Americans has only grown stronger in the last 4 years. But when you talk about accepting the outcome of the election, I must tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election. It's amazing. When Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, the FBI actually spied on President Trump and my campaign. I mean, there were documents released this week that the CIA actually made a referral to the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course, we've all seen the avalanche, what you put the country through for the better part of 3 years until it was found that there was no obstruction, no collusion, case closed. And then, Senator Harris, you and your colleagues in the Congress tried to impeach the President of the United States over a phone call. And now Hillary Clinton has actually said to Joe Biden that in her words, under no circumstances should he concede the election. So let me just say, I think we're going to win this election. President Trump and I are fighting every day in courthouses to prevent Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from changing the rules and creating this universal mail-in voting that will create a massive opportunity for voter fraud. And we have a free and fair election. We know we're going to have confidence in it. And I believe in all my heart that President Donald Trump's going to be reelected for 4 more years.
You know, I've written all the questions that I've asked tonight, but for the final question of the debate, I'd like to read a question that someone else wrote. The Utah Debate Commission asked students in the state to write essays about what they would like to ask you. And I want to close tonight's debate with the question posed by Brecklin Brown. She's an 8th grader at Springville Junior High in Springville, Utah. And here's what she wrote, quote, "When I watch the news, all I see is arguing between Democrats and Republicans. When I watch the news, all I see is citizen fighting against citizen. When I watch the news, all I see are 2 candidates from opposing parties trying to tear each other down. If our leaders can't get along, how are the citizens supposed to get along?" And then she added, "Your examples could make all the difference to bring us together," end quote. So to each of you in turn, I'd like you to take 1 minute and respond to Brecklin. Vice President Pence, you have 1 minute.
Brecklin, it's a wonderful question. And let me just commend you for taking an interest in public life. I started following the news when I was very young. And in America, we believe in a free and open exchange of debate. And we celebrate that. And it's how we've created literally the freest and most prosperous nation in the history of the world. But I would tell you that don't assume that what you're seeing on your local news networks is synonymous with the American people. You know, I look at the relationship between Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late justice who we just lost from the Supreme Court, and the late Justice Antonin Scalia. They were on polar opposites on the Supreme Court of the United States, one very liberal, one very conservative. But what's been learned since her passing was the 2 of them and their families were the very closest of friends. I mean, here in America, we can disagree. We can debate vigorously, as Senator Harris and I have on this stage tonight. But when the debate is over, we come together as Americans. And that's what people do in big cities and small towns all across this country. So I just want to encourage you, Brecklin. I want to tell you that we're going to work every day to have government as good as our people. And the American people each and every day love a good debate. We love a good argument. But we always come together and are always there for one another.
Thank you,
in times of need. And we've especially learned that through the difficulties of this year.
Senator Harris, what would you say to Brecklin?
First of all, I love hearing from our young leaders. And when I hear her words, when I hear your words, Brecklin, I know our future is bright because it is that perspective on who we are and who we should be. that is a sign of leadership and is something we should all aspire to be. And that, that brings me to Joe. Joe Biden, one of the reasons that Joe decided to run for president is after Charlottesville, which we talked about earlier. It so troubled him and upset him, like it did all of us, that there was that kind of hate and division. What propelled Joe to run for president was to see that over the course of the last 4 years, what Brecklin described has been happening. Joe has a long-standing reputation of working across the aisle and working in a bipartisan way. And that's what he's going to do as president. Joe Biden has a history of lifting people up and fighting for their dignity. You have to know Joe's story to know that Joe has known pain, he has known suffering, and he has known love. And so, Brecklin, when you think about the future, I do believe the future is bright. And it will be because of your leadership, and it will be because we fight for each person's voice through their vote, and we get engaged in this election because you have the ability through your work and through, eventually, your vote.
Thank you,
to
Senator
determine
Harris.
the future of our country and what its leadership looks like.
Thank you, Senator Harris. Thank you, Vice President Pence. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We want to thank also the University of Utah for its hospitality, and most of all, our thanks to all the Americans who watched this debate tonight. Again, our best wishes for a quick recovery to President Trump, the First Lady, and everyone who is battling COVID-19. The second presidential debate is next week on October 15th, a town hall-style debate in Miami. We hope you'll join us then. Good evening.
of her party, which, as we expected, I think there'll be a lot that Republicans will be happy to talk about when it comes to his performance. It was more standard. There, I think, a disparity in terms of some of the unanswered questions. Both of them did a lot of dodging.
All right, so they're just gonna try. They're gonna try not to answer, but there's gonna be an instant poll on CNN, so I'm gonna keep that on and just talk for a little bit. So I don't actually, I'll move the poll over here so I don't miss it, and then I'll bring up some of the protest footage. But yeah, I mean, Mike Pence, kicked her ass, which I think is great. It's what should have happened.
But then he walked over and started swiping at my phone. I'm like, what are you doing? I didn't know. I thought he was like.
This is Minneapolis. This is Mercado out there.
Must became a bad day for that guy. He's finally given up. I think he finally gave up too. I've just been looking at it. I know.
Salt Lake City, Utah has a bunch of protests as well. And it was getting a little hairy for a little bit.
He somehow pivoted to the economy and jobs, that sort of thing. She obviously didn't want to answer the question on the court packing thing, but I was telling my stream, but that's a lose-lose answer for her. So of course she's not going to answer the question.
Yeah, I would like to hope the answer is yes, but yeah, you're completely right. There's nothing to gain from her basically coming out and saying, "Hey, this is what we're gonna do." That's a very tricky question for someone to answer, because at the same time, I thought she could have maybe gone on the attack there to be like, well, we didn't stand in the way of Brett Kavanaugh. You standed firmly in the way of Obama appointing a Supreme Court nominee with how many months was that? 9 months, I think. And you know, the hypocrisy from the Republicans at that time being like, well, you can't possibly do it. There's an election in 9 months. This is not becoming. And I was like, well, we have less than 2 months. Yeah, let's shove that down our throats right now.
I thought that was probably her most skillful dodge, was that question, because she did a good job of invoking Honest Abe, and then she also, and I was like begging for her to do this too, but she also, I thought it was a really effective line when she said, let's talk about packing the courts. Mm-hmm. And then she talked about their record of holding up Obama's nominee and trying to jam through this this Supreme Court nomination when there's like 27 days left for the election. So
rather than something that felt like kind of a big mess. So yeah, and I thought both candidates had better moments, and both candidates were evasive on some things. So you know, it's I look at it as a draw. That's how I see it. I really don't think it's going to have a big effect either way, but I do like that it was it felt like a debate where both sides got to talk and address some different things. So that's my 2 cents on the whole thing. So at least it wasn't like a big mess. Also, I'll say this: I certainly don't think there was any kind of enormous moment in terms of like one person will say something and after the debate everybody's like, oh my gosh, that one sound bite, I can't believe that person said that thing, you know? So that's a question I had. I guess you might say it kind of went like I thought it would, in the sense of I didn't see anything in terms of what they said that was such a surprise, or like one person knocked out the other. And again, they're not the candidates, they're the vice presidential candidates. But, you know, I don't think there was any kind of, neither of them embarrassed themselves, I thought. So, you know, I don't really think this is going to change things much. But felt like a healthy debate to me, and felt like they both did an adequate job. So let me hear what you have to say. But my honest thought is that people who like Biden will say Harris won, and people who like Trump will say Pence won. That's what I'm guessing will happen. Although some people might say it's a draw. Let's see here. Yeah, so HMB sent me this. This is from the HMB sent me this. I don't know if this means that our viewer HMB agrees with this, but David French, who's a journalist, reporter, columnist, commentator, he says, I'm feeling nostalgic. This reminds me of normal debate frustration when politicians don't answer good questions and respond with canned mini speeches. Simpler times. Yeah, I mean, it looked to me like the strategy was each of them came in knowing what they wanted to say, and unless they got a question that was kind of right up their alley, they were going to kind of talk about something else. That's what it felt like. Hey, thanks, by the way, for your support. Thank you, Jackie Nit Kenobi, Tamau. Jackie mentioned The Fly. We'll talk about that. Tamau says it's a beautiful day for the Dawn partisans. Thank you, Kirk Spaziani, who talked about a question he didn't feel Pence answered. Yeah, there were a bunch of questions that were not answered. I feel like on both sides I saw questions not being answered. Chris Wright, thank you, Chris. Chris thought The Fly won the debate. Denise McHugh is talking about The Fly. Rocco 135 says, I'm not a Trump supporter, but I think Pence won. Thank you for your support. Yeah, so look, obviously this moment happened with The Fly. If you didn't see it, about, I'd say, an hour or so into the debate, a fly landed on Mike Pence's head. It was there for a couple of minutes, and here's a picture of it. Now, it's weird, you know, look, I watched the whole debate, so to me that was a very small part of the debate. But I don't know how much this will be the moment of the debate, in the sense of, if you're watching this broadcast right now, you're probably somebody who, I'm guessing a lot of you keep up with the news and you're into politics. A lot of people, you know, they're either too busy, they're not interested, but a lot of people aren't going to watch that whole debate. You know, they'll watch some of it, but they'll be doing 5 different things and they're talking to their friends. You know, I don't think most people are going to sit there for an hour and a half and watch every line of the debate. So something I don't know is when something like this happens, For me watching the debate, I'm sitting there watching it for an hour and a half straight. It's, I don't really care. But for, someone who's more of a casual debate viewer or didn't watch the debate or watched it for 5 minutes, like, will this be a big moment for them in whatever sense? Like, will this be the big takeaway? I honestly have no idea. I just don't know. So I know a bunch of people are talking about this.
Portion of society, representative of everyone, that is saying this propagated new my truth, and everybody else is just saying, no, we've lived through so many different presidents, I've lived through so many different times where we thought that was the precipice of social change, that I understand all the good things that we have, and I'm not buying into this new, excuse my language, bullshit that's being peddled around, and I can see past it as this just bid for an election seat. You see that she can't answer when they ask her, are you gonna change the rules? Well, no, I want the American people. You need to vote. No, I didn't ask you if you wanted American people to vote. I asked you, are you willing to pack the courts? Are you gonna change the rules even though you lost to them fair and square? Well, what about your? She talked about how she was the only one that had sat up there and had a hand in prosecuting murderers all the way down to light drug offenders. And then Pence took it right over and let her know, no, let's expose your record for what it is. You extended prison labor. You denied people early release just so that they could provide work and labor for your state. You incarcerated 1,500 people for what your state deems a recreational drug. And I find that the American people every day are waking up. They're taking that red pill. They're understanding, even though they may have been a Democratic moderate in the middle, that they understand that the real key to this election right now is it's one fight. It's collectivism, which is the identity politics and the power of the state, versus the power of the individual and the choice. What do you think about that?
Absolutely, totally agree, man. That's just like music to my ears. You're just nailing it, my friend. You're nailing it, my brother. We have like minds.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm gonna say this, Brandon. I'm pretty bold. I'm gonna tell you, I'm pretty bold.
Let it fly. Let it fly. We're in the politics section.
Yeah. And so what has happened under that umbrella that you just described is a specific targeting of Black Americans to keep us in a state of being offended, keep us in a state of being victims, keep us in a state of the white man is trying to keep us down, keep us in a state that we've got to have the Democratic Party to fight for us. They've never fought for us. If you look at the history of the Democratic Party and since their inception all the way from the 1800s, all the way up. So we went from slavery to Jim Crow to sharecropping to welfare. Mm-hmm. And that's a specific targeting. That's part of their agenda. That's a part of their platform. And they're still doing it today. I mean, when you have people like Maxine Waters that said, if you see a conservative, if you see a Republican anywhere, if you see someone other than a Democrat anywhere, get in their face and tell them they're not welcome at a gas station, at a department store, at a restaurant. That's Jim Crow. I grew up under Jim Crow. What are you talking about? We can't go to a restaurant, a gas station, and a department store. So that's what they're perpetrating today. And we want no part of it. It's like, oh, we're supposed to hook up with that. We're supposed to hook up with Joe Biden, Joe KKK Biden, who was supporting Robert Byrd and had the nerve to tell Black people that if we didn't vote for him, we ain't Black. And I have a response for him. You see here, I told God, I said, there's a song in that. Now, if you want me to sing it and write it, give it to me. And about 2 days after that, I woke up at 5:20 in the morning and had the words and the music to the song, You Ain't Black. You can avail that on my website, JanicePons.com. But, they just play us for fools. And so there's this specific targeting regarding Black Americans. And I'm going to say something else is strong, but it's just the truth. With all this Black Lives Matter, they've tried to hijack the nation, hijack all of us under the cloak of Blackness And if you don't hook up with it, something's wrong with you. Well, we
Yeah.
don't hook up with it because, I mean, what are you doing? You're burning down Black businesses. Black people have been killed. White people have been, the majority of people that have been killed since George Floyd, that there's been no accountability whatsoever. It's like we're being duped again.
Right.
So see, people are waking up and they're like, you know what? I don't want to have anything to do with you. It's not about Blackness. And if you want to go there where Black Lives Matter, their goal is to dismantle the nuclear family. Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Exactly.
Fatherlessness is a big issue in Black families, in families that where a lot of dysfunction is going on. So I could go on. They are very specific. They say they're trained Marxists. We don't agree with that. I don't want to have anything to do with a trained Marxist because I know what that means. That's a step before. That's socialism, communism. That
Well,
is
it's
the goal
it's
of
an
the Democratic
anarchist.
Party.
It's an anarchist. It's an anarchist
Absolutely.
approach, and it's the most extreme approach. It is saying before we will change the law, or we will legitimately gather at the polls and vote to put representatives, which then push bills, which are then pushed by Senate. No, we're going to change the rules, because rather than follow the rules of the game and win, we're just going to. It's like when you're beating somebody at Monopoly. You're beating them handily, right? They're arguing with you. If you're ethically, you're taking everything from me. I landed on Boardwalk again. You're gonna really just end the game on that. And because they're losing, they just take the board and they throw it in the air, and they just throw all the pieces everywhere, and all the pink
Absolutely.
50s go everywhere. That's literally what the neo-Marxists want to do, and it starts with destroying the respect of family. And the reason why that the target on God, and I would just say respect for a deity and then individualism as started to go away, is because people that don't want to necessarily be at the whim of the state, the thing that rules mostly outside of your pure anarchists, even Satan can be their deity. But people that don't want to be at the whims of the state, they are beholden to their God. They believe in their inalienable individual rights. Collectivism strips those rights, therefore making the state your new God, your new deity. And so that is why they're trying to destroy that nuclear family, because that's the first step. If I can get your family to break up, I can destroy your religious values. Therefore, I can make you basically lose all momentum in life and be at the whim of me fixing your problems, me being the state.
Wow. Boy, you nailed it there, my friend. Absolutely. And so all this hijacking that they've been doing and trying to take us down this road of racism, I mean, those dues have already been paid. So when I saw that emerging again, I was like, oh my God.
Time is a flat circle? All right, what's going on? The Native American said was in the presence of a fly means that you should steady your emotions in order to act quickly in unfavorable conditions.
So, thank you very much for coming.
I forgot about that. The monolithic Native Americans, yeah. Silicon baby, yeah. Jesus Christ. Fly will vote is real now? Oh god, yeah, I know, I saw this. I pulled this the Joe Biden campaign just tweeted. Oh, fuck's sake, where is it? Oh, while we're looking, somebody link it to me. Fucking idiots. The fly on the phone with his friends like, yes, bitch, did you see me on TV? Oh, okay, this one, that's a shit fucking post. Glaring, I hate that post. Mike Pence fly? Wait, do I have COVID now? Well, my cops voter guide just arrived in the mail. Let's see what... The Cops Voter Guide recommends no for racial equality, yes for tax breaks for fire victims and seniors, no, slashes what works for public safety, no, oppose to housing for... Live posting with a rate of 327. Holy shit, Live posting. How'd you think the debate went, Liv? How did people make bingo? Was there bingo? It was boring. It was pretty. Dr. Dibbles, thanks for the tier 3.
Hyperlib, posting hyperlib, posting hyperlib,
Live posting. Remind me to talk to you. Aegis, hey!
Trump got COVID from grabbing her by the pussy. Wait till the Trump mom kicks my ass. I think Donald Trump's mom need to whoop his ass, so whatever. Huh? A one-on-one? Yeah. I'll whoop his ass.
He said, why you got that big guard? You got a small dick.
Big guard.
The big gun.
Oh shit.
Patrick was like,
oh shit.
It's like, yo, why you got the big gun?
Oh shit. That's funny as hell. That's funny as hell. Oh, the Biden people, where are we gonna be at? Right here. Right here?
Look at the new mask.
I want to know.
We're waiting for something? No, let's just go.
Everybody's kind of waiting. I know still no. They got the buses.
There's some conversation, obviously people yelling back and forth, you know, saying fuck this, fuck them, fuck you, blah, blah. But there was a lot, the most I've seen, I'm from New York, no constructive conversation doesn't happen like this in New York City, you know what I mean? It's all super separated, super yelling at each other, in my experience, which is maybe not a lot, but through the BLM, through some different things, anyways, just not a lot of constructive conversation, a lot of hate, blah, blah. I've seen people holding Trump flags, people holding Biden Kamala's flags, fucking talking to each other and making some common ground. And what you have to realize is that we're all human, right? And we all have a lot more in common than you think. And so have conversation. That's the only way you're going to be able to get people to go from their opinion to your opinion and, you know, change their vote and change their idea, maybe what they believe, because maybe they believe something, but they think they believe another thing, whatever the case may be. It's only going to be resolved by conversation, not by inhibiting conversation. So, right on, independent journalists like you, fucking right on.
Yep.
And I appreciate you coming out here.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, thanks.
No
Hey, remember, guys, smoke a lot of weed.
Smoke tons of weed.
Smoke weed, right? All day, baby. Oh shit! Where have you been all night? I've been looking for him. I've been looking for you all night.
How you doing, man?
You see that video I made of you?
Which one?
It's on my channel, Innocent Auditor.
What's up, brother? It's on what?
Innocent Auditor. I was there at the Cottonwood Heights. I took a picture of you and the BLM lady.
Okay.
Remember that? Yeah, I did a video of you. Yeah, it's all right. It's all right.
There's always somebody taking pictures, man.
I thought I'd seen you around.
Yeah.
I thought you were the president also. You know the president Salt Lake? Oh, okay. You can't look like
I can't dedicate that much time, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess you've seen here, brother.
Yeah. What's your website called again?
Innocent Auditor.
Innocent Auditor.
Yep. So he's a member of Proud Boys.
Right on. Yep. Proud of you, boy. Thank you, man.
Yep.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope it's seen on all the Antifa websites.
Antifa. Oh no. Scary guy. I don't want him to kill me. On YouTube? Am I on YouTube? I'm on YouTube, right? On YouTube, right? And, show his wife? Women Van Dam?
So if we recognize, if you want to, you're gonna torch life, you wanna try it? I'm sure Smitty will be up your fucking ass quick. Go back to your country if you don't like how we do shit.
Get out of our land!
Hold on, did you get that? He said come back to our country. They're false. Look, don't react. They're false. Tell him how he's at. Don't react. To tell him to go back to go. Kill it. Kill it. Kill it. Kill it. Let them stay in their moments.
Hey, if you don't like it here, get the fuck out.
Yeah, agreed. Facts. Get out.
So back, get the fuck out.
Yeah, see you later.
I have plenty of stage. I'm not worried about it.
Crybaby losers, get out. Losers! Walk away. That's not like
Yeah. That's it, guys.
Hello.
I mean, but so we're gonna stay at distance. Fuck. I'm gonna just put the gimbal away at this point because I don't think I could run. If I run or if anything like that happens, it's gonna look like shit because I'm running with the phone in my hand. But
I'm gonna be heading out now. I'm done for the day. I'm out to the house now. Once again, it's
Yeah, boy. Oh, yeah. Nolan!
Come back up here. Right, go down there.
we're hated now. But that's okay. We're gonna stay over here. Removing barricades. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I gotta eat my Sammy quick. I need some energy. Subway sandwich time. There we go. This is Minneapolis, Minnesota. The current time is 10 o'clock p.m. We're looking at the 5th Precinct, Minneapolis Police Department, 5th Precinct. To give context, it was the 3rd precinct that was burned down. This is the 5th. The 3rd precinct wasn't completely burned down, but on the inside, they can't use it anymore. So this precinct is the 5th, and then there's the 4th precinct in the north side. So we've been to different precincts. Yep. YouTube takes 30%.
What's that?
Filming everything.
Who
was that? No, just you.
Oh yeah. Hey, you're a pretty cool guy, aren't you? I'm not bad at all.
No.
Who are you filming?
I was just filming these people talking and being a little part of their conversation about how this guy thinks that communist nations and socialist nations are better than America, but this lady lived in Canada, that guy lived in Italy. She's trying to tell him how much better it is in America, and that's why she moved here, but he's telling her she's wrong,
She moved to Utah,
even
though?
though she lived here, or even though she lived there.
We can't smoke weed in Utah, though. I moved from Canada.
That's okay.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's all right. There's, you can go to Colorado, it's right
True.
next door.
Oh,
You can go to, there's so
Wendover,
many.
yeah.
And I've been to plenty of concerts here in Utah where I've smelled a grandioso amount of interesting
He
substances.
says, I live in Holland. You live in Holland? Oh, nice.
Holland?
Yeah, it's not bad.
Oh, yep. Yeah, I used to work at the Vivint Arena and was there when one of the guys came in for concert, and it was just the whole place smelled like weed. But it's like, apparently they pay for it, and the cops can't prosecute it, and so if people want to smoke weed, they can smoke weed.
Hell yeah, that's good. All right, brother.
It's one of those
I'll
things.
give you a fist pump. Yep. Are you part of the Utah Citizens Alliance? Utah Citizens Alliance? Okay. UCA. All right. Well, let's go see if I can find something else. Let's go talk to some Proud Boys, huh?
I know. Well, it skips off the top. Taking it.
I'm back.
Oh yeah.
I'm back.
So here moving forward, whenever you need to take a dump, it shall henceforth be known as taking a Tifa.
So what? Hold on, say it one more time. Say it one more time. I didn't understand that. What did you say?
Henceforth moving forward, whenever one is taking a dump, it is now known as taking a Tifa.
Huh.
Yes.
What does fuck chuds mean?
Huh?
Fuck chuds?
Chuds.
I don't know what chuds means. I'm sorry.
I got a little bit of a chub, but.
No, CHUDS. I don't know what the fuck that means.
You look at me and you think Chad?
I don't know damn clue. Oh, we got Proud Boys here. I don't discriminate. I mean, it is what it is, you know?
Go on, brother.
Hey, too, brother. Do you want to talk to about 12,000 people real quick?
Sure. What do you want to know? Shoe size?
What's that?
My shoe size?
Whatever, yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you just want to talk? Yeah.
Yeah, what do you need?
You've been speaking a lot. So
I
what?
do.
Okay, I'll interview.
All right.
So why are you voting Trump?
You know what? I voted for someone to change the country. I didn't vote for a prophet. I didn't vote for a priest. I vote for a man to change the country. He did just that. Regardless of coronavirus, which he didn't invent, he changed the country. So I don't vote for personality. I vote for a person that can change the country. I'm going to do it again.
Awesome. Cool. Well, nice talking to you, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Be safe.
You too, you too.
Keep walking, clown!
I know you got camera shy, huh? So you got camera shy. Should I stand in the way? Burgess? What the fuck is that?
Sweden needs to be on camera.
He
took Daddy Trump's money, but he's still cranky pants out.
Okay.
I just see you watching it.
Did you want to talk chat? They want to talk to you. Say hi, chat. What chat does? We got 140 here.
Hi.
I'm talking. Any questions? No?
For me?
Well, I'm reading their stuff.
Oh.
I don't see anything. Say hi.
I didn't know this open. Is it in there? It's right here.
We have to focus on them because they're not as important right now. But that's saying that they're incompetent. It's saying that they're incompetent and they're not. They're
Like White Lives Matter,
they're equal to us. They're equal. They've been equal. Why are we going back in time?
But see, here's the thing. She's calling the Black Lives Matter racist, but that's included in all lives matter, right? Black isn't, so how's that racist?
No, by the chat, by saying Black Lives Matter, it shows that blacks are incompetent and they can't stand up for themselves. So that white people have to stand up for the black people, and that's not okay.
So we just stand up for each other.
Black people have to. They're confident. They can stand up. My children are black and Cuban. I would never tell them that you have to follow this group, Black Lives Matter, because then I feel like it makes them feel like they're less than.
Oh
it
no,
does.
I've been to both. I've been to all the on
But
both
do you
sides.
do you not think the same thing? Like if you're saying, "Oh, you matter because you don't matter."
No, because I wasn't born and raised that way. So
In Utah,
I don't
in Utah, especially in Utah, there's not really racism. I've raised 2 Sudanese kids. They're playing professional sports. They play for Oklahoma Sooners right now. Like I've done
Boomer
more for the black
Sooners.
community. I've done more for the black community than most of these white people who are supporting this thing. I'm in the black community. I'm in Kurds. I was the PTA president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. I was everything to make sure these underprivileged kids had a chance in life. They come to my house to eat. Like these are my children. I have probably 16 Sudanese kids that are my children playing professional football right now. They are my children. Would I ever tell them, hey, Black Lives Matter? That would make them feel like they're incompetent. And I don't ever want them to feel incompetent. They are Americans. They matter. Yes, they're Americans. That matters. And they're totally against the Black Lives Matter thing. That's how I've raised them. They're not incompetent. They have opportunities because they've taken those opportunities and they've grown from them. And they were refugees, and now they have a chance in life to be amazing. And I don't want them to ever think they're less than, or my children to think that they're less than, because they're a different group. So that is a racist statement. Really, truly, it breaks my heart.
It all just boils down to a matter of an opinion.
Yeah, but
That's
it breaks
all it
my
is.
heart. It breaks my
I'm
heart.
sure it does. I'm sure it does. But under the
And
First
then when I'm
Amendment,
called-
people practice their First Amendment
Yeah,
rights.
but then
So
when I'm called over by the girl on the megaphone, white bitch, white bitch, white bitch, white bitch, I'm like, okay, so if I called you a black bitch, that's racist as fuck.
Yeah.
That is so fucking racist. I would never say that. Oh, I don't care. You're a fucking white bitch. You're a white bitch. How does that help our situation?
no.
But they're falling under the
No.
Black Lives Matter. to
Yeah,
get that
well-
clout to
well,
come
I-
out and
yeah.
say that stuff.
I've had the Trump people tonight call me salty bitch. So
And so I'm mad because I had a couple of our guys threaten him, and I've stood by him. How long have I been standing by you tonight? Because that's
yeah, but
not
he
okay.
kind of provokes things sometimes, though.
Yes, he does.
I'm just
Yes.
laying it out there.
Yes, and my friends are all saying he does provoke shit. And I'm like, okay, but don't hurt him. Don't do anything to him.
What he
Leave him
what he
alone.
does
Yeah. So are you, like, where are you at on the spectrum?
for
Trump, Biden, that kind of thing?
neither.
Liberal? Or
Neither.
See, I
I'm
was
not.
a libertarian.
I'm not a Democrat, and I'm not a Republican. So
Libertarian? That's where I was, right in the middle. Like, I don't like
Yeah.
any government. They suck. And you know
Yeah.
what? On my Facebook, I have things so under the America United chapter, I'm the vice president. I wanted, when I have a platform that I can go speak, my platform was all of these elected officials that have sex with underage kids that have been busted.
Oh.
That have been busted. I can go speak that. And I'm like, but I don't want your platform. I don't want it. Like, that's what I want to speak on, because it's both the Democratic and the Republican Party. Both.
yeah, it just the right now our society is just too political.
It is.
Back in the day it wasn't. It was political, but not what it is right now.
There's such a division right now.
They're
And everybody's sticking so hard to their side. They're like, but I actually talked to some leaders here, and we're going to sit down and discuss things, and that's how you move forward.
I just open dialogue.
Yes, because right now, if we're divided, they win. The government wins if we're divided. And if we're united, they lose. And that's what my whole thing, like, I got heated up on that thing when I'm being called a white bitch, and they're instigating our officers because we need our officers. Yes, there are a few bad cops. There is, and we need to get them out of there. We have to get them out of there. They have to be able to tell on each other without it being looked down on. We have to have that.
I don't think they have the balls to do that though.
But we have to do that. They really do, and I think, I don't know, maybe the Black Lives Matter situation, maybe that's helped it. If so, great. I can agree with that. Great.
I think just the Black Lives Matter in general is just an awareness that hey, some of these voices need to speak up. So. But yeah, I believe in everybody. So.
And I'm a Christian at heart. Jesus died for all of us.
Yeah, whether you agree,
regardless of color.
whether you agree or disagree, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. We all should be there for each other, no matter what. You know,
Yeah, so I'm gonna sit down with somebody. I mean, I know there's some people extreme, like calling him out tonight, and that's why I stood by him, because I am a big political figure in all these groups, and I'm like, okay, so this is the first step. Like, he might be an instigator, but I got his back. I'm not gonna screw with him. Like, you might want to talk shit, and after they told him, you're next. Now they stayed away from him. They're not going to say shit to him now.
See, that's why I told him that he has to be careful who he talks to, or you know who he.
No,
because he's got a history of doing this.
No, because they see me at all the rallies.
I know, but you got to.
Also, Manny, did you see what Manny did to me tonight?
Oh, Manny got hauled off.
Do you know why he got hauled off? So he was trying to fight someone down there, and I stood in the back of it, and I was pushing him back. I'm like, this isn't gonna happen. I was standing back. Oh, fuck you, cut. I'll fucking punch you right now, you fucking stupid bitch. I'll fucking punch you. I'll fucking knock you out, you fucking bitch. Kept getting in my face. I'm like, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? And I actually pushed him, and he kept going, I'm gonna fucking knock you out, you fucking stupid cunt. You fucking stupid bitch. Like, derogatory. And I backed him up into the cops and let them handle him.
Yeah. What do you think? What do you think?
This is what I said, Manny. We're actually making dialogue. Please chill out. We're making dialogue. Let's do this together. And I was like, let's chill out, Manny. Let's chill out. And that's when he. I
want to ask you a question, because I was down there when the police had him, and he said multiple times tonight that he's suicidal, that he wanted to be taken to the hospital. Did they ever pull up in a? I'm not finished. Did they ever show up in an ambulance? No. I bet you if it's any of...
Why did he say that? Hold on. Do you think that was fake? Because he walked out into the cops. It's like, oh, look at me, guys. Look at me, guys.
Did you see what...
They'll take him down to the police station. They'll screen him. They'll have somebody talk to him. If he's suicidal, they will have somebody talk to him. They're not just going to go get an ambulance. They'll have somebody talk to him.
No, but if somebody's requesting medical attention, at least provide it.
And you don't know that they haven't. They will. They
didn't have it there.
They couldn't take it much of you. They have